Good morning. This is Dr. Jennifer. I am back, absolutely back. And we're continuing with our topic on boundaries. I started it yesterday, and thank you for the amazing response to everyone that listened to it. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your love. This is a very, very, very important topic. I want to continue this morning talking about what I started yesterday, which was boundaries. And I want to do a little recap before I continue with this all encompassing, all important subject. You see, in our last conversation, we learned that boundaries are not fences that keep people out, but they are guardrails that keep your peace. I'm curious to learn how that impacted you and how you've been thinking about it since yesterday. Have you perhaps seen the reason why sometimes when you share too quickly or you overshare, you kind of feel like people are rejecting you? It's because you haven't taken the time to ensure that you are sharing to the right people that have the capacity to hold the safety for you. So we saw that they're guardrails to keep your peace in, but we also saw that they protect your peace. They regulate your emotions and remind you of your capacity. And capacity is the ability to do something, either to make choices, to ensure that the choices that you're making are aligned with who you are and where you are going and what you want to see happen, and so many other capacities. But they remind you, boundaries remind you of your capacity. We also say that emotional maturity doesn't begin when you say no to others. It begins when you learn to say yes to your own peace. And that's a huge difference. It's so easy to say no to others, but can you say yes to your own peace? And then keep the boundaries in place that maintain that peace. So today we're going to move forward and really begin to go a little deeper. Once you've learned to protect your peace and you realize that vulnerability is not evidence of authenticity, that there's a difference between vulnerability and authenticity, and you have put the guardrails in place that protects your peace, then we go to the next level. Yeah? And the next level is that everyone doesn't belong everywhere in your life. I'll say that again, because this is important. Not everyone belongs everywhere in your life. So who do you get to share the space in your life with, especially the space of vulnerability? One of the most overlooked forms of self-leadership is placement. And I'm sure that there are a lot of reasons I could go into that, but I really want this video to be short. But here's the thing. Placement is a leadership skill, and it's an important skill. And please hear me when I say leadership, because leadership starts with self-leadership. All of us are leaders within our own rights. And until you develop your own personal leadership, the likelihood is that a lot of decisions that need to be made by you will remain unmade. And because they remain unmade, a lot of issues and chaos, confusion and conflict will consistently be a daily thing in your life. The issue of placement is a leadership skill. Your peace depends on where you place people in your life and where you place things also in your life. Every relationship isn't meant to carry the same weight of access. And don't forget, it's access. And when you misplace people, giving them deep access to those who have not earned it, we drain our own energy. And that energy could be used as fuel for purpose and for passion and for building our lives. Excuse me, my grandson just joined me. And for building our lives. So it's important to know how to place people in our lives. It doesn't mean that you have to be mean to people, because kindness is integrity. As far as I'm concerned, that's how I see it. We often call this placement of people in our lives love, compassion, or openness. But sometimes it's actually dysregulated generosity. And this is important to be able to tell the difference, because when you are able to tell the difference, it'll really help you get clarity, especially from where the chaos is coming from in your own life. And here is the qualification here. Most of the time when we are experiencing chaos, for men, you may look like you're okay, like you're cool, everything is fine, but in reality you are suppressing and you're freezing. For women, we get dysregulated and we just, most of the time, kind of like show our emotion openly. But that's because of misplaced love, misplaced compassion, and misplaced openness, which is actually unregulated generosity. So there are 3 circles of relationship that you should always be aware of at each point in your life. And I like to say this: every person you meet, you are auditioning in their lives, and they are auditioning in yours. So keep that in mind. So there are 3 circles. I will start with the most important circle, or maybe I should start with the outer circle. The very outer circle, this is the circle where the world lives. That's where your acquaintances live. That's why most of the time your clients start from. Your followers, your associates on the job, people that you meet day in and day out, they all start on the outer circle of your life. And these people get the light of your life. They still get the compassion, they still get the kindness, but it's just a light of your life. And that's perfectly okay. They don't get to hear deep-seated secrets of your life. They don't get to see you vulnerable all the time. But they get to experience you on a small level. Now, when we talk about authenticity, a lot of people are telling you that authenticity means being completely open and fully wide to everyone. But that's not true. That's actually not true. The second is the middle circle. And the middle circle, these are now what you start calling your friends. And all your friends are not equal. These are your friends, your colleagues, even some family members, I'm sorry to say, even some family members. You care about them, but there's still that little bit of a guard of some parts of you that you know if you share with them, you have no idea where it's going to go or what it's going to end up becoming. These haven't broken your trust. Some have, but you've maybe reconciled and gotten back together. But they haven't yet proven they can carry what you have and who you are. Most of the disconnection that happens and the fights that happen, they're not fights most of the time. They're a question of capacity. the person might not have the capacity to have that conversation. So if you look at, attachment styles of people, how people relate to other people and how they learn to relate to other people, people who are highly dysregulated, their attachment style might be very anxious. And because their attachment style is very anxious, the likelihood is that they won't be able to hold a lot in terms of capacity. So conversations are held because the person you're having the conversation with has the emotional maturity and the emotional capacity to have that conversation. Otherwise, the conversation just degenerates into chaos. It degenerates into confusion. Building that capacity is a leadership skill. You as a leader must be able to build the capacity to hold any and every kind of conversation, because you have teams to run, you have an organization to run, you have a business to run, you have executive meetings to be in, you have JV partners, you have people that are relevant, and as you grow in your business, you begin to even meet dignitaries and all sorts of different people. So growing your emotional capacity to hold conversations is a skill that must be taught. Unfortunately, not very many people get that opportunity to experience that. So these people in this middle level, you can go jogging together, you can go to the gym together, your conversations in the first circle might be about the weather, or it might be about, children in general. Politics, I don't think so. I don't think so. So as you keep going in these circles, the conversation level changes. The depth to which the conversation goes also changes. So the middle circle, they haven't broken trust, but they haven't yet proven they can carry it. Keep them close with kindness, but keep your sacred space guarded and grounded, because you do have an area and a place where you go to be vulnerable and to be open. I am not a proponent of people being vulnerable everywhere, anywhere, anytime. I just am not. Because I think that vulnerability is a gift. It's a gift of me that I am willing to share with you because I trust you. But when I do share it and I don't trust you, then the fault isn't your fault. It's mine. It's mine for not knowing who to allow in and share with my deepest heart. It's not your fault. So I don't blame anyone when they betray me. I don't blame anyone when they abuse me. I don't blame anyone when they take advantage of me. I rather take stock and I take assessment and I see how I've been showing up in that particular relationship. I see if I fast forwarded and ignored the danger signs, ignored everything that said you can't trust them, they don't have the capacity, like the time they ran off and got mad over something that had nothing to do with them, they just misunderstood, and I ignored it and pretended like it didn't happen. And then when they become controlling, I'm surprised, like, oh my God, why are they controlling? No, I'm not surprised, because I am aware that these things will happen. Capacity, not everyone has the emotional capacity. And in our school community, we do teach about your emotional capacity and the levels of emotions and where people are and how they will respond to you and the kind of things you can expect from someone, whether they're an executive or they are just someone that you work with on the ground. Their emotional maturity has a lot to do with how they show up and how they conversate and how they respond to challenging circumstances and to challenging questions and how they respond to people who are maybe a little bit more gifted than they are. That brings us to the inner circle. And like I said in the video yesterday, the inner circle doesn't have a lot of people in it. It has very few people. The middle circle has a lot of people, because some of these people are really your closest friends. You do share vulnerability to a certain extent with them, but that deepest vulnerability you keep for people with the most capacity. So the inner circle, these are the few who've earned the right to your vulnerability through consistency, through integrity, and through safety. They have reputation with you, not with others. I really don't care what other people think. What I care about is that you and me have built that relationship. So these people have consistently, with integrity and safety, been there, and they have been able to hold you, because vulnerability is really unveiling the deepest hidden parts of you. They don't just clap when you win. These people protect your name when you are not in the room. They champion your dreams. They champion you. And when you fall, they're the ones you know are going to be sincere and honest with you. For me, my biggest champions, the people that I have in my inner circle that I am vulnerable with, they're very candid and very honest with me. They don't just champion me, but they're also honest with me. They're the best people ever because they're my growth partners. They help me grow. Among that list are my mentors, people that I trust very deeply, and right now I have more than 10 mentors, all of them very professional, very powerful, and very life-changing. These are my wisdom sounding boards. I am vulnerable with them. And the reason I'm vulnerable, I know I'm safe in their presence. And I know what we talk about will always end up being about me. They won't jump into the conversation and make it about themselves. They won't feel like now it's a moment for them to share their story. Have you ever been vulnerable, and the minute you finish being vulnerable, somebody, instead of responding and affirming and either standing with you, jumps right in and they start to tell their own story of how their life was horrible? That's what I'm talking about. The capacity to be able to have that conversation. So as a leader, you have to understand this, that this placement isn't optional. It is structural. A team without boundaries burns out. A leader without boundaries breaks down. Entrustment leadership teaches that clarity protects connection. You can't empower who you haven't first positioned correctly. So before you can empower someone, you first have to position them correctly. Let me give you a little bit of stats. According to the Harvard Business Review, leaders who maintain clear relational boundaries report 40% lower burnout and 32% higher team trust scores. Healthy placements build sustainability. This is why when we bring outer circle people into the inner circle spaces, we invite misunderstanding. Misplaced trust creates emotional leaks. You end up repairing what wisdom could have prevented. Boundaries aren't about exclusion. They are about alignment. They let your love generate without losing yourself in the process. Oh yeah, and we know that you can lose yourself in the process of love. Boundaries are not walls. They are doors that only wisdom knows how to open. That's a good one, isn't it? Boundaries are not walls. They are doors that only wisdom knows how to open. Here is a reflection for engagement for this week. Who in your life has earned the right to stay close? And who might need to shift circles so your peace can breathe again? These two are powerful reflection questions, especially if you are truly serious about maintaining your peace, about keeping your safety. Now you know that the first language we learn is nervous system to nervous system. And love in nervous system language is predictable, consistent return. So who are these people in your life that have earned that right to stay close to you? What about those that jumped circles and are in a wrong circle that you need to take and place in a different circle? Please share your thoughts with us and let's have a conversation. Let's talk about what you have discovered and about your placement and peace. Let's talk about stories in your own life that you can share about misplaced people, misplaced relationships, misplaced confidentialities, but a big one, misplaced vulnerability, where you opened yourself up and shared something in a room, and the people in the room didn't receive it as a gift. They saw it as a problem, or they saw it as a pest. Listen, this subject is so powerful because it changes the way we relate to each other, but it also calls onto our maturity. It helps us to grow through levels of maturity. I want to become a person that's dependable and reliable, that's trustworthy, so that the people who work with me, and since I work with leaders and executives and organizational leaders, I want them to trust me. Professionally, trust is a huge thing. But you got to understand, trust doesn't just happen. It means you know how to hold safety for others. You have integrity. And when you're called upon in times of their vulnerable moments, you can receive the gift of vulnerability as a precious gift that you can give them return. And the return is you can hold the space for them. I think vulnerability is a beautiful thing because it shows that we are human. It shows that we are growing, because growth is something that we all need on a daily basis. And when you're blessed enough to have people in your life that trust you with your vulnerability and you don't have the capacity to hold it, please don't betray them. It takes a lot for someone to be vulnerable with you. So when they give you that opportunity, please don't abuse it. Rather, learn and grow. Learn and grow. Learn in how to hold capacity, how to hold others. This has been lesson 2. Time permitting, I'll come back tomorrow and do lesson 3. In fact, we might just end up doing the whole week and just finish this whole thing to the very end so that we can give you as much value as you can, so that you can come back to this place and you can look at this. A lot of people are bleeding. A lot of people are experiencing a lot of things in their life because they think it's because people are horrible. People can't hold secrets. People don't know how to hold vulnerability. But the reality is that you have not built boundaries. You haven't valued your inner parts enough to create boundaries to hold your peace. And you haven't been careful in how you connect with others and who you bring on board to become someone trustworthy and to share your vulnerability. I was in Australia last night and we were talking with my friends, my professional friends, and again this thing of vulnerability came on. Because in our group we have emotional safety, so it's much easier for us to be vulnerable with each other. But not every group has emotional safety. That's why it's so important for leaders to build psychological safety for teams. Teams that have vulnerability do more than teams that don't. I will see you tomorrow as we go even a little deeper and open up areas that will begin the conversation. So this is your invitation to meet us here tomorrow and have this conversation with us, and let's talk. Let's share. Let's be in each other's place. Let's be vulnerable within reason. This was Dr. Jennifer, and I will certainly see you tomorrow.